Hello, and welcome to the Inner Fire Climbing Podcast. I am your host, Jesse Firestone. My guest on the show today is Collin McGee. If I am the mullet of Camp 4 Human Performance, I guess Collin is the beard? I don't think that really makes sense. Collin will be properly introduced on the show. We'll go into his background a little bit and his qualifications. We do talk a bit about coaching here, but in general, it's just a wide-ranging conversation about climbing topics. There is a bit of a structure to the show this week, so trying something slightly different there. But all in all, Collin is a font of knowledge. We've had lots of interesting conversations over the years, and he's always a little bit of a agent of chaos in these conversations. It's hard for me to predict exactly where he's going to go, which I think makes for an interesting little chat. So I will leave the structure as a surprise, but we will explain it when we get to it in the episode. And with that, I will just say, if you enjoy the show, we're on Patreon, patreon.com/innerfireclimbing. And that's just $5 a month. If you want access to special bonus stuff, videos I put on there, knowledge about guests before they come out, and of course, you can ask questions on my monthly AMA episode. So for all that stuff, head to patreon.com/innerfireclimbing. And with that, please enjoy the episode. Collin McGee, thanks for coming on the Inner Fire Climbing Podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It is always an absolute pleasure to chat with you, whether we're in coaching mode or C4HP team meeting mode. I always love to chit-chat and riff, and always something to learn. So, yeah.
We've managed to actually miss meeting each other in real life, even though we've both worked for Tyler for a while now.
Yep. Have never
I almost came to Finland
version.
This year.
Yeah.
We've been to Salt Lake. We always talk about going it hasn't actually worked out, but chatted a million times. I'm happy to have you on the show. And man, I'm happy to have you on the show because I don't actually know like that much about Collin the person. I've done some coaching calls with you, and we've obviously we're both on Camp 4, so we've done a lot of podcasts and stuff, but don't know that much about like your background and stuff. So I think you used to play baseball, maybe. Let's tell me a little bit about yourself, your athletic history, how you got into climbing, all that stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I did ball sports once upon a time. Oh man. Okay. So we'll go long story medium. I was a baseball player. Since I was 4 years old. I remember playing like Grasshopper League and like hitting off the tee and this and that. And, God bless my dad's shoulder and all of the anatomical tears and things his shoulder has taken on because of throwing me pitches and whatnot. But yeah, that led me through high school. I played a little bit of football and basketball, but baseball is just my thing. And I was fortunate enough to have baseball take me into Ivy League university. So I went to school at Cornell University and went to school for biomedical engineering, which didn't really work out so well. But sometimes I put things together, and I always nod to my one semester engineering degree there. But after that, I ended up graduating with the major is technically called interdisciplinary sciences, which I call purgatory for medium level GPAs, and a double minor in nutrition and business. What I was really chasing was because I went to school, again, play baseball, and I loved working out. I loved the weight room. I loved the training aspect and being a strength coach, and that stuff really fired me up. And so towards my senior year, I started to say like, hey, our head coach allowed us to do a bunch of mentors with previous alumni, and a couple of them, looking back, it was really funny. They kind of got into the certifications I felt to otherwise. And I really wanted that route. Now, I was too late to actually do anything in exercise science. The neighboring college, Ithaca College, is actually one of the nation's best for exercise science. And talking to my guidance counselor, I was like, hey, can I do some classes over there? That'd be really cool. She's like, sure. I was like, will these credits count for me to graduate? I'm a little behind. She goes, no. I'm like, well, what am I going to do here? So long story short, I graduate and I go down the route of the certifications and the weekends. So the CSCS, your strength, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist from the National Strength and Conditioning Association. It's one of the quote-unquote gold standards for the strength training world, because any Division I collegiate and professional sports team, at least in the States, requires that. It's like a minimum thing. Like you need a bachelor's degree, you need this certification for whatever reason. So I started there, and then I found local sports performance training and personal training that we had some family friends kind of get me involved in. I got the Shadow. That was like my first job and only job besides Camp 4. So fast forward a couple of years, one of my coaches that I hire, who's now one of my best friends, her and her husband, they were obstacle course racers, Ninja Warrior, Lachey, all that fun stuff. And they used the local rock climbing gym for training because rock climbers were fantastic. Like Magnus Mippo was on the show for a little bit. Stefano Casalfi was on Team Italy for Ninja for a while. And I just fell in love. They took me to the gym. I remember like top roping my first 5'8" kind of thing, doing like some big little dyno that I just learned about, kicking the wall, walking away with this massive like softball sized welt in my shin for smoking a wall. But I loved it. And speeding up the story, Instagram's algorithm now have put exercise science and climbing together, and boom, pops this tattoo guy who's doing cool stuff. And it's Tyler. And so I start doing the thing where I'm learning, I'm following Tyler, and he has a course in Philadelphia, which is about an hour away from where I live in Reading, Pennsylvania. Took the course. I was one of like 2 coaches and a bunch of athletes. It was like his old school course that he kind of does now, is revamped. And I just stuck with it because he was having an offer where if you bought the G Strength at the time, you could become like a satellite C4HP finger testing thing. You'd be featured on the website, and then you can just go to these things. And so I was able to kind of get involved with the testing. Tyler would help me understand the metrics and the numbers. I also, for a year and a half, hired Tyler as my coach just to learn it and do it and learn it. And I just kept doing it, and slowly Tyler asked me to do more and then do more. And now fast forward, now I get to fly around the world and teach the things that we've learned through Tyler and Camp 4 and you now, and kind of spread the word. So it's one of those funny, like I would have never, ever thought I was going to be a global climbing coach in college. Like I hit a ball with a bat for a living. So so that's kind of how I got here. Now I climb. I've been climbing probably officially for 2016, 17, 6-7 years, something like that. Yeah. Since 2017. So, almost 10 years. Yeah. So.
Awesome. It's super, parts of it are super relatable to me, but I imagine you have the same thing I do where like if you go to a party with quote normal people, or who was it that was calling them muggles? I don't know. I heard that somewhere. Non-climbers, like it's very hard to explain what you do to them. Like,
yeah.
And when you say global climbing coach, like that's very, like when I tell people like I'm a climbing coach, they kind of don't, they're kind of like, okay, you work at the YMCA or whatever. But like, then I'm like, no, I have clients in Finland and Japan and South Africa and like all over the United States. And like, that kind of gives it a little bit, then they kind of understand a little bit more of what you're doing, that you don't just, you're not just like bullying kids at birthday party.
Right. Yeah. You're a little more than that. Not that those people aren't people too. They're cool. We need you. But
well, no, totally. It's pretty hard to do that for a career when you have a family, but yeah, maybe there are people out there doing that. Props to them.
Yeah.
They're working their asses off. Yeah.
It is fun. It's a fun, I guess the word I learned from one of my personal training clients is circuitous. Circuitous is my favorite word. It's a roundabout way of getting to where you are, because it's not a linear progress. You never know what's going on. And now, like my day job still is a personal trainer. I'm a director for a personal training studio in Pennsylvania. And so I still oversee a bunch of coaches. I coach a lot of people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, up to 80, 89 is my oldest client, from move better, get stronger, lose weight, your typical personal training kind of stuff. But we do a lot of sports performance. Right before we start recording, I mentioned I started working with our local professional hockey team. So there's the ECHL, the AHL, and the NHL. We work with the ECHL version of the Philadelphia Flyers called the Reading Royals. And so that's been a fun thing. So it's nice to have a pretty diverse background. I coach grandmas, I coach 7-year-olds, I coach field hockey, I coach professional ice hockey, and I coach other coaches to do that and climbing all at once. Yeah. And I think the coolest thing about that is it really allows you to see clearly that the physical side of things, and even the skillful side of things, all play by the same rules, all the same principles. It's just the end product looks a little different. Hockey's got the stick and the little black puck. Climbers have our fingers and weird shaped objects that we crawl around on. But at the end of the day, it's all trying to make humans physically healthy and resilient and capable to go do their thing, whatever it is.
Totally. Yeah, I talk about this all the time. It's like you want to establish a positive feedback loop of being stronger, having more tissue capacity so that you can do the things that actually make you better at climbing. It's like very indirect relationship. And it's really the same for other sports. Like if you like the NFL Combine is really interesting because you get this like sort of direct interest in the weightlifting aspect of it. But if you just look at the active players and like how much weight they can move, there's like a pretty broad span of like how much weight they can move across the teams in the different like positions. And I'm not super interested in the NFL. I just, at some point I was like, that might be an interesting, sort of analogy to the same thing in climbing. Like if you take a whole bunch of professional climbers, like they're going to be all over the map for their bench press and weighted pull up, and definitely for their squat and their deadlift. Like I think you're going to have people climbing V17 who can't even squat like their body weight. Yeah, like I would not be surprised. I actually, probably most of the people who climb V17 couldn't squat their body weight, but there's a compelling argument I think to be made for, longevity and other things to like work on those aspects of athleticism a little bit more. And I think that probably speaks to like how much in the dark ages climbing is as far as that like positive feedback loop of training, building into the skill side of the sport.
Yeah. My thing too is like always the Schrodinger's box idea too, where I think, and we've had some comment feuds as always on Instagram about this, but like so-and-so doesn't strength train, that's why they're good. But my idea is like, what if they did? Yeah. Like, and we don't have like Yanya. We don't have two Yanyas to compare, like one that can squat a body weight and one that can't. We just have one right now, and that's the only one we're ever going to get that does a certain thing is really, really good.
I bet she can. I actually bet she can. I think when I watch the World Cups, I feel like Yanya has really strong legs. I think it's a differentiator for her.
100%. And someone just needs to like test and be like, see, she is strong, right? It's not that it wasn't a dumbbell or a kettlebell. Because a good coach does a lot of these things too with our sports, and I've done some videos on similar things, but it's not about the dumbbell or the kettlebell. It's all about force. Like there's no such thing as strength training. It's just force training. Like you are involving your body in trying to produce a little bit more force than you usually do. Your body gets better at doing that, and you continue to. And that's why like climbing only quotes works, because it's still force training. It's not a dumbbell, but it's a way to make you work a little harder. And it's just that one time we used to send mail by horses, and now we have planes and email. So we could use random abstract things to get stronger, use force, or we can use the dumbbell with a number on it that shows you like this is where you start and this is how to progress. So it's just one of those things that I think we all do it. We're all saying we are not, but we are. And there's just maybe some modern efficiencies that we can implement.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think different people probably have different, like just genetically, they have a different predisposition to respond to something that's as high power as climbing and like get a recruitment bonus from it, or like a muscular hypertrophy benefit from it. Because I definitely meet people who just climb and eat at a surplus and they gain muscle, like not just in their forearms, but like even in their back and their shoulder, like they've gotten more muscular and they've never done any weight training. I think that's the exception and not the rule. And there's obviously going to be an upper bound for those people. But even just for myself, I think when I really learned that I could modulate the speed that I climb at, and I started trying to climb more slowly just to become more stable and like I really just wanted to get better at that climbing style. I didn't have an ulterior motive about being strong or anything. But when I started climbing a lot more slowly and like owning the positions and squeezing my body, I got way stronger. And that strength like fed back into my powerful style of climbing in a way where, this was probably 10 plus years in my climbing. Like I had been very powerful and snappy the whole time. And that was just at a certain point, it was like blood from a stone, and I was just getting tweakier and stiffer. But I wasn't actually getting any more powerful because that like baseline muscular recruitment had sort of hit a wall, And when I really slowed down, I was like, oh, now I'm getting stronger again. And then I like doubled down on that. And then not long after that, I started weight training because I was like, maybe I actually should invest in this thing that seems to be working out for me a little bit. So yeah, it's an interesting part of coaching, isn't it? That like you don't really know the first time you work with somebody, the first plan you write or the first few sessions with somebody, like what they're going to respond to or what's going to like really gel for them, right?
100%.
The same with the hockey players too, I bet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So first to comment on the program, the first time you interact with someone, and I think that's why, even as a coach, like business wise, I've totally gone away from like a 1 month program, because like 4 weeks, what is that? Like you can have a cold or something gets derailed, and it's just a bad representation for like my time and the person's time that we could have, and that's why it's common across the coaching board to see maybe like a 3 month commitment initially, because I want to get to know you and I need 3 months for you to understand who I am, how I do things, how we can communicate. But like you said, like getting the dose right, because there's sets and reps and things, but everyone is so individual. I might give someone 8 reps of something and it might be meh, and then we drop it down to 4 rounds of 3 reps and all of a sudden they respond. And that's just how this works. It is an educated guessing and trial and error process until you see change. And I think that's the aha moment coaches will get, and you dive into like the physiology and deeper stuff. That is all we're doing. We kind of know what dose and something to feed the thing, but then you have to just step back, give it some time and see what happens. And if things are changing, you keep pushing it, you keep stoking the fire, but eventually the fire kind of hits its limit and then you have to kind of renegotiate a little bit. But that's strength training and that's exercise. And that's why, not that like we have a quote unquote cookie cutter program, but I want access to training for everyone. So we have high tier things that maybe cost a lot, then we have low tier things, but in general, cookie cutter things are rough because they will work for someone, but they won't. And kind of back to the whole Yanya thing or any elite thing, what they respond to is totally different what that you're going to respond to. And if you're a weekend warrior or someone who's stressed out, has a job, like I'm going to do that thing. I don't know. Good luck. Like I might, but you are just different fundamentally. And that's why you have to be okay with accepting that time and error and trial is how you're going to find progress. And if you're doing a program, you're like, this is boring. I'm going to go over to Coach Jesse. This is boring. I'm going to go over to Natasha. And that's fine. Like I love the variability for long-term longevity. But if it's every time you're changing, you're just never going to see real progress.
If you don't develop an actual relationship with the coach, because like I would like to think that I am good at that, and you probably are too. Like over time, you start to sort of learn what the person actually needs from you. Maybe they need like less structure, more guidance, or like vice versa. Maybe they need more accountability. I definitely have people that I can just fire off a plan and I know that they're going to message me when they need something. And then I have other people where I send them the plan and then I don't hear anything. And I'm like, I feel like I need to nudge this person, and like see what it takes time. It takes time to figure that out for sure. Yeah.
100%. That's just the way it is. And I think even from a coaching background, we can tie this into the hockey. So the most interesting thing about, this level, it probably applies to AHL and NHL from what I've read and a couple of coaches, but ice hockey, their schedule is very comparable to like a climber, even comp people that are just always in season. Absolutely always in season. The issue with them is they are always banged up. Every week, I go, hey, how are we feeling? They just go, good, And good is they have an AC sprain in their shoulder. They might be slightly concussed that they are not telling the coach. They have hips hurt, this hurts, this shoulder. They just got in a fight, so their thumb's broken. It is a wild, wild west to coach ice hockey.
Yeah.
But it's super fun as a coach because I have a plan, and I look at the plan and I go, this is never going to work week to week. But fundamentally, I'm going to stay on the same progress where, we have 2 days a week that we work with the guys. And one day is focused mainly on strength training, so heavy and slow and all that. And that'll be closer to when they get off in the weekend and further away from when they start their next series of games. And then the next day that is a little closer to the game is something a little lighter and snappier. So we're jumping and we're doing plyometrics and we're doing some more velocity-based things so to keep the fatigue low and not get in the way of how they feel going into play 3 or 4 games on the road and playing ice hockey, literally fighting people on knives.
Combat sport.
100% combat sport. Gladiators on water. But that's the same thing I think coaches need to take in to have that flexibility. And like, you just can't slap a climbing beginner program at something. Like you have to learn how to read the room and read the person and make the necessary adjustments to make those tweaks to push it forward. And as us as climbers and athletes, you're not going to show up 100% healthy to everything all the time, but it doesn't mean you don't do anything. You always have to kind of keep the body going, because their goal right now is to be playing hockey, and it's not to be a really good back squatter. It's not to be a really good whatever. But they also know that if they do not do this, and 1 week turns into 1 month, turns into 4 months, how they feel down the road in 20 games, they're going to feel awful. And someone's going to be skating faster than them. Someone's going to be recovering better than them. And so they invest these little tiny doses into their physical bank so that they can continue to withdraw when they're on the ice. And I think that's just like the perfect example of what the true essence of strength training really is, and power and performance. It's just about maintaining the body to keep it going a little bit so you can do the thing. It's not about the numbers or the this and the that ultimately. It's just, are you showing up to skate, to boulder, to rope climb? Not 100%, but like as close to your potential every single time.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's good wisdom. Like something that I've seen happen a lot with clients that maybe will be relatable to people is like they get, a few weeks into a training plan or a few weeks into their season, and they start to feel kind of run down, and they're like, okay, I'm going to deploy the one technique that I have, which is I'm going to take a 1 week rest, or I'm going to take like a 5-day rest. And like people will tell me I'm taking a 1 week rest. And it's like, it kind of makes sense. I think it can be a Band-Aid. And I actually do think taking a week rest every once in a while is like good. But if you're just like pedal to the metal all the time, and then you take a 1 week rest and you're just like straight back to pedal to the metal, and you never learn how to like titrate, how to like push the gas pedal more gently than that, I think that it's just not as effective of a strategy. Really, because climbing is a sport that kind of happens 52 weeks a year. Like, I think we all are operating under this sort of shared delusion that like, people who are largely outdoor climbers with a spring fall rotation, let's say, like they have the shared delusion that like spring and fall is when you climb outside, therefore like winter and summer is like break time. And maybe that's true for some people, but I think what happens with a lot of the really motivated outdoor climbers is that they think that, and then summer rolls around or winter rolls around, and they start training really fucking hard. And they're like, summer and winter, this is when I try really hard in the training. And then spring and fall, that's actually more chill because I'm going climbing outside. But like, actually it's like 365 days a year of like burning the candle at both ends. And it needs to be, I guess what I'm trying to say is it needs to be a sustainable process, and not just like I do it for this amount of time. So, I mean, I try in my plans to either like bake in deloads or explain to people how to deload, and be really clear that like if you start feeling like twingy or something goes wrong, it's not about like putting brakes on the whole thing and just like stopping completely. It's about figuring out how to make the process sustainable and like work yourself back to not feeling tweaky by engaging with it in a way that's like a little bit more dosed or a little bit more like titrated.
Right. Yeah. I've always heard like there's a means to an end of things, but I don't think there's a means to end of anything. Like you're always trying to improve your body with the strength training off the wall knowledge. You're always trying to get better at climbing. You're always seeing if you can get a little better in a particular category or grade or whatever it is. And so there is no start and stop point and a completion. And as far as the body goes, it's like riding a bike kind of vibe when it comes to skills. And so that doesn't go away as much, but your body is in this state of entropy where it's just trying to get good at whatever you're doing, and to the level of that intensity. So if you're just working a day job or sitting or whatnot, it's learning how to do those things well. But like you're a weekend warrior, so you also want to slap around on a V10 thing on microcrimps. You also should be teaching your body how to stay physically fit and healthy there too. So you can't take off, because if you take off, your body's going to love it and just go in the direction you're telling it to. So it's kind of like this constant communication where you're slowly amplifying the level of intensity that you're communicating with your body to stay fit and moving and capable. But yeah, if you have a very black and white or on and off or seasonality about what you do, I think those people run into those cycles of frustration, both physically and skillfully, when it comes to their sport.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like the idea that it's very hard to build like a peak athletic performance on top of a lack of physical literacy. And like, that's a funny thing to say because there's so many climbers in our sport who have done exactly that. But I sort of perceive that as being just how immature climbing is as a sport for starters. And I also think like the average person who's climbing like really, really hard actually has a very high degree of physical literacy. They just don't have a high degree of like exercise science literacy. Like they don't know how to move in a weight room. They probably don't know the form for a lot of things, but they're actually really strong in the sense that like they know how to move their body. They could, they could have some weight on and be like one leg on a Bosu ball, and you could throw them a ball and they would be able to catch it with their other hand like pretty easily, right? They're very coordinated in that sense. Whereas I guess Gen Pop probably doesn't have a lot of those sort of basic skills. But I think if you're not one of those people, if you're not a professional climber, which you're probably not if you're listening to this, the average like sort of amateur climber or like weekend warrior type person just would benefit so much from understanding like what is cardiovascular training, like how does that actually impact exercise. Like I don't know that it's super important to train the different energy systems for climbing. That's a little bit, I don't want to foreshadow our main segment too much.
Overrated, underrated.
Yeah. That might be a little bit overrated, but it is important to know that like oxygen is a key component of all of the chemistry that goes on with those energy systems. And how does your body get oxygen to the muscles? It's through your cardiovascular system. It's like, it's useful to know how these things work and understand that there's like merit to different types of training, and it ain't all just like pulling hard on the moon board, but that probably is the most important piece, but other things tend to underpin it. So,
right.
Yeah. Should we get to the main segment?
Let's dive in.
All right. So today we're trying something new. We're doing overrated, underrated. So Collin and I both brought 3 things we think are overrated in climbing training, 3 things we think are underrated in climbing training. I feel like if people are familiar with both of our work, they might not be super surprised. I tried not to just pick the most. I could have just gone like overrated max hangs, weighted pull-ups. I didn't do that.
Maybe we did part 2 to surprise some people.
Yeah, I tried to not pick my top 3 and like go a little deeper so that it'd be like slightly less. But I think people still probably won't be that surprised by mine. Right. So maybe we should. Maybe let's do all the overrated first, and then we'll do all the underrated. So what's your first thing?
So my first, because it was hard to pick from like principles or method, because our brains are just working the same way. So I went with a method that is very popular in the fitness world, in the IG world, but also I think we get a lot of these questions when we go to, States as well, but like Europe, Canada, that kind of stuff. And the word is calisthenics. And it is, I think, calisthenics and the hype behind that it is better than blah, blah, blah is super overrated. Because a lot of people are like, all you got to do is just learn how to use your body weight and and you can progress. And all they're doing is strength training without a dumbbell. They're just using their body in very strategic ways. I remember seeing an ad on Instagram. Let's see, for the listeners, if you can imagine like TRX rings are your typical pull-up rings. And in the rings on the strap leading up to the attachment point, there are other little loops. And you can adjust these rings to like tie onto your arm or whatever. And basically what it does is the hardest would be if your hands are all the way at the end. And the easiest is if it's closer. They literally just made progression and regression in force. Bit it. But they're going to call it calisthenics. Like it's not dumbbells. I was like, oh, what are you? Come on. So that's my big thing is we're all doing the same thing. We're just using different implements to make our body work a little harder. 100%. It can totally work. And I think you want the principles to know how to make it work. That is a fantastic person, trainer, athlete, coach. I always tell my coaches, we do like a little drill, we'll call it, in staff meetings sometimes. We'll break the staff up in the corners. I'll just throw them random things in the corner. Like you get a band, a dumbbell, and a squirrel. And I want a program for 6 exercises. It's going to last 30 minutes, and it's for this person to go. Yeah. And they have 5 minutes to build it. Like, that's fine, because you should be able to go in van life and find a way to get stronger if you know how to enact force, with isometrics or range of motion or speed, blah, blah, blah. So it's not that it does not work, but it's, when I hear, is this better than calisthenics? Can't we just do calisthenics? I'm like, sure, if you want to take the long way, go ahead. But if you have access to dumbbells and kettlebells and a tin deck or whatever, why not make it easier on yourself? Like, there's no glory in the rings to be a climber. And sure, we've had a lot of people who have started there because the traditional way of climbing was very resourceful with a lack of resources. But it doesn't mean we can't step into the modern times.
And very body weight. People are just very body weight oriented in climbing. They sort of think like, well, that would be the most force that I would ever need because I'm on the climbing wall and it's my body weight that I'm pulling up the wall. But it's hard to, we already went through a lot of that stuff in this podcast, so I won't re-litigate it. But like, yeah, that's just a lesson that needs to be learned, that higher levels of recruitment than just your body weight are like very beneficial. So I don't know. I think calisthenics are like, in my personal view, I think they're rated. I would say they're just rated. But I agree that like in the modern like take on them, I think is overrated. I agree.
Because it gets tricky too with the whole body weight thing, where I think a couple people have heard say, you know, on the wall, right? You said it's body weight, so why are we not doing anything? It's always body weight. But they also think climbing harder grades immediately equates to more intensity physically. Where if you've actually climbed a lot of harder grades, it's not always a physical thing. It certainly comes, but it's usually just more complex and technical and thoughtful. And smaller edges and smaller feet don't increase gravity on your body, so it's not a progressive physical load. So that's also where people get sucked into this body weight only, body weight only, body weight only. That's how we get better or stronger. And then we just have to, I think, get a unite in a universal language of what is strength, what is power, what is endurance, how do we improve those things, and also like what is skill, and then keep those things in their separate lanes and use the tool for what they do. And they can, you know, cross the line here and there, but not so much so that I think it gets in the way of limiting our progress for talking about those things.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Okay, I'm gonna undo my order. And I guess I just posted about this on Instagram, but this podcast will probably come out in a few weeks, so maybe the timing's okay. But my overrated is quote functional or specific. You could probably throw a bunch of other words in here, unique, special, like basically just thinking that training needs to be something that's like super. I can't think of another word besides specific. Something that's like very directly tied to climbing, and if it like is different than climbing, that's like somehow bad. And there's like a lot of pushback right now on the idea of functional training, at least in the what I would consider the like sort of actual coaches world and not the influencer coaches world. Like coaches who actually coach athletes and coach other coaches seem to be very anti-functional right now, or very dysfunctional, versus like but then of course you go look at like the people who are really pushing quote functional training, and like they actually have like millions of followers, which is really frustrating because that's kind of what the algorithms that's kind of what they do, right? It's like the quote functional training, to me as a person who's very into strength training and exercise science, I think it looks fucking stupid. But I think to people who just see it, they're like, oh, what is this guy doing with this like pipe? And he's like pulling on a cable machine and doing some like step move that looks like something from a jazzercise video from the 1980s, and they're like, what the fuck is that, you know? And they click the follow button. Anyways, all that stuff, very, very overrated. And I have had conversations with people who come to work with me where they ask about, you know, like I'll give them a slew of exercises to do, and they'll ask me like how those exercises relate to their climbing, or like what is about this is specific to my climbing. And a lot of the time I'm just like, well, it's not. And then we have to have this sort of conversation about why general training is actually kind of a lot of what you want, especially depending on where you are in your climbing journey. But I almost feel like as I've gotten better at climbing, what I really need from my training is to have a strong, solid foundation of like robustness and health that I can then build my climbing practice on. Like I don't want to, I mean, we have a baby, right? I have a 6-week-old baby. So I've been spending tons of time holding that baby's head up, feeding her, which is a huge, it doesn't sound very hard, but when you do it 8 times a day for, you know, 30 minutes or an hour at the beginning, it took a really long time. Like it starts to be quite a drain, right? Or, you know, other example would be like carrying the car seat. Like there are times you go to the doctor and you're carrying the baby in the car seat for 20 minutes and standing in line with the car seat, and like you can put it down, but then you have to pick it back up again. And that kind of stuff, I think, can easily interrupt my climbing practice if I didn't keep myself strong with more general strength training. And that example is very specific to me. There are obviously other dads out there who would struggle with the same thing, but for me, I've just noticed, like, if I lose track of the general strength training, then my real life starts to infringe on my climbing practice, and I just can't have that for sure. But then also just the big ticket stuff like taking falls doesn't hurt as much, carrying the pads around doesn't hurt as much. It's all very general and not specific to climbing that much at all. Like, I would say the parts of my training that are, quote, specific to climbing is very small percentage, right? Unless you count climbing, which is obviously a big percentage of my training as well, and the most important part, arguably. So yeah, what do you think about specific training, Collin?
Oh, so important. I haven't gotten to the point. Well, I'm still like a pretty good coach in person to be like speak the language, but there are some times where the parents will ask us about the field hockey, soccer, all the other sports. Like, is this sport specific trade? Like, no, nope. I will not adhere to that. Like, you're not kicking a heavy soccer ball. You're not swinging a weighted bat. We're here to make really strong young athletes who are resilient, and they can go practice and get the shit kicked out of them by dumb coaches, and so they can come back here and do it again. And the only like specific stuff I would ever do is like fingers for the climbers. For some throwing athletes, we do a little extra shoulder rotation things. Hockey's funny. So I learned a new thing about ice hockey. They love what is called hip activation. Very similar to like glute activation. You're like, oh, your glutes are off, whatever. But they like these massive 6'7" people from Russia who are jacked are like doing little mini band like wiggles. And I'm just like, guys, you just did a Bulgarian split squat with 80-pound dumbbells and you need the mini band? They're like, nope, I have to do my mini band things, otherwise my hips are going to hurt in the ice. And so shout out to ice hockey guys. Still love you guys. But every sport has it, right? We all have these little things where it's almost superstitious that it has to do that, or otherwise it doesn't work. And, whether it's a warm-up or a mentality.
That's totally the word. That's great.
Right? And that's the specific thing. It's a superstitious thing where if you're not doing something specific, you're not going to get better. And that, is a mindset psychology thing, but maybe it just points to the fact that maybe your practice just isn't the quality or the intention that needs to be, because I am thoroughly convinced. Now, I love getting off machines and doing some other things too, but I am thoroughly convinced, like, you just give me a leg press and someone who is a super talent or really good at practicing, they're going to be fine. You wouldn't be able to tell the person who back squats, does a lunge or a single leg whatever, or a leg press, if all three of them are fantastic at their sport. You'd have no idea. They're just strong.
None of those is more specific than the other, for sure.
No,
the unilateral thing drives me crazy with climbing, that like unilateral exercise is more specific for climbing because we like are pulling with one arm at a time. It's just like, oh my God, that's not how training works.
That's not at all. Yeah, it hurts. And so, I love diversity in your training. So go from 2 legs to 1 leg to whatever, just for the fact of being comprehensive with speaking to all of the tissue in all the ways that it works, but not in the way that specific thing, oh God, I use the word specific, is going to be better to make you better at that sport. That's
I do think like there are many benefits to unilateral training. I just don't think its relationship to climbing is not one of them in my view. And I do lots of unilateral training because it does train ranges and patterns that can be kind of hard to get into bilaterally, because you can just move sideways more than you can when you're using both legs or both arms, right?
Reminds me of a video I like to repost like once a month at this point. I just, for clickbait, is I have like the edge and I'm doing like a one arm row on the edge of my arm, and my video is like, this is the best exercise you've never done. And you know why? Because I just made it up, you dumbass. Exactly. Like, you clicked on So but every time it just gets good views. It gets views, and everyone's just like, man, you got me. It's like, this is the point. This is the point where we're so attracted to the sexy thing or the thing that looks like what we're doing, and it's going to be the grade. And people put the bands around your hips to run through the ladder for field sports, and we're getting our fingers involved in weird ways for climbing, and it just might be a thing that can help someone at some stage of their training. But fundamentally and principally, it's probably missing the mark if you're putting so much value into it, like the ultimate value into it.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I've seen like big climbing YouTube channels that where I'm hearing them say like I would do this exercise instead of this exercise because it's more sport specific, and it's like I should probably just start commenting on those things. I haven't gotten to that point yet.
There's one I'll send. There's one I'll send you, and this guy's like, guess the sport, and he does a bunch of random shit, and you're like, I don't know, Star Wars, like something's going on, and it's like rugby. I'm like, no way, like,
Sure,
makes no sense. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I've seen all those I'm gonna just talk about social media now, but the reels where people are like, "What is this person training for?" And I'm always like, "You probably shouldn't be able to really like unless you see me doing a finger training exercise."
Yeah.
I don't think like, and I'm wearing a shirt that says, J Fire Climbing, or I'm wearing like a organic climbing shirt or something. Other than that, if you saw me in Planet Fitness, you would think I was just a guy who wanted to have a jacked body. Like
Right.
I don't. My training does not look that special.
100%, and that is the telltale sign for like me hiring new coaches and whatnot. Like, what's your program for field hockey? What's your program for this? What's your program for that?
Yeah,
I shouldn't
like
see
80 or
anything.
90% of it should be the same. Yeah.
Yeah, if you start bringing out some weird stick, like, nope, no, like you're missing the point. So, and there's actually some other videos of people that made that point. They're like, look at this athlete, look at this athlete, look at this athlete. They're all doing the same thing, but they're all like Olympic gold medalists in different disciplines, and like that's
Nice.
the point. Yeah.
Squat, bench, deadlift, baby. All right.
Oh.
Overrated. What's your next one?
Overrated. Okay. So my next overrated is protocols. So 7-3 something 4x4.
Okay. Yeah. Like
20 millimeter
duty cycles.
Yeah. And all of these things, and I was trying to find a quote on the internet, but it just did not help. And so there's a story, because I can't remember if it's a real story or not. But it's a really cool thing where these war soldiers were fighting or something, and they had to wait 20 seconds before they could fire again. And they didn't really understand why, but they just kind of did what they were told. They go into the next war, they're doing the same thing, and they're waiting, and eventually they start kind of losing. And so before the next war, whatever it was, they asked the general, like, why are we doing it? Can we understand it? So we're going back through the manual, and finally went back to, it was like a Civil War manual, something like hundreds of years ago. And reading it, you have to wait 20 seconds before firing again to steady the horses. And it's one of those things where in modern warfare, this example, that wouldn't make sense. But we just do things over and over and over and over again. We don't ask why or where it came from. And so back in the day, the 20 millimeter edge was maybe the size of the wood they had laying around at Camp 4. Who knows? Or the 7-3 was apparently the time taken between handholds and rests for maybe it was Ava Lopez or someone else. Great. But that's that person, or that's that piece of wood, and it really has no true significance, because 7 seconds of muscular activity for me and you and someone else, all totally different. There's such a crazy array of energy systems and functionality and muscle going on that it's fine to use. It's like the calisthenics thing, you can do it, but if you're doing 7 seconds and you accidentally hit 7.5, you shouldn't freak out, because it's probably fine.
Right.
20 millimeters is totally different for every single person's fingers. And we know that now with Tyler's big studies on the unlevel edges and the joint angles and the different lengths. If everyone touches a 20 millimeter edge or measures from the tip of their finger 20 millimeters in, it's going to land on way different spots. Mm-hmm. That means 20 millimeters isn't unique, but like where on the finger and the joint do you want to train on relative? Do you want the joint to bend? Do you want a certain part of your attachment point to be before or after? Like those little principal things matter. And so getting back to the protocol thing, I think people get too caught up in this, and maybe you need to start somewhere, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm not saying don't do 7-3 repeaters. It works, whatever. But you have to start with exercises, and maybe you have to start with a 7-3 repeater. You have to start with a squat. But after you do it for a while, you should also be simultaneously trying to really understand like why you're squatting and really understand why you're doing a 7-3 or really understand why you're doing a 4x4. And eventually you start to realize, oh, random 4x4s don't make sense. But if I do 4 boulders and I'm resting for an appropriate amount of time, all of my boulders are at 20 degrees at a certain edge type because I'm trying to get better at the particular. That's when the aha moments start to come, and you get to be the creator of your own protocol. And that's when you win as a climber or a coach, and not just kind of slapping things and hoping they stick. And again, we might have to start there, but I think protocols that get blindly followed and don't ask why we do them to understand them, that's a dangerous moment.
Yeah, that's good. I think you're secretly a philosopher, because basically what you're saying is what you do doesn't matter as much as why and how you do it. And I think I relate to that quite strongly. Like I actually kind of wish there were more 25 and 30 millimeter finger training widgets on the market. Yeah. I think lots of people would benefit from training on a 25 or a 30 just to be able to hit higher levels of recruitment with the forearm without putting their dip joint at so much risk, especially like some people, not everybody, but like a lot of people that I train now, we sort of do this like, okay, hold your hands up for the screen and like show me your joint. We're going to look at your finger lengths. We're going to see how, one thing that I didn't realize was happening with my climbing training over the years is that like, obviously my fingers have gotten a lot stiffer. That's like really normal, but I didn't realize my DIP joints, like they do not, I'm showing you right now, like it does not go past neutral. It has no, like my middle fingers have a little bit of extension. And I talk to people all the time where if they do this test of like DIP hyperextension, so how far you can hyperextend the joint at the end of your finger, a lot of people have like very mobile DIP joints. And if that's you, training on a finger training device that doesn't reach past your DIP is going to probably put you in a lot of hyperextension at that joint and put you at a risk for, it's just a lot more leverage on the A4 and the A2. And that's, again, like Collin was saying, it's not really a bad thing. It's just like you really want to be aware of that. And like a 25 or a 30 mil edge might be a better edge for you. Now, you can also pay really close attention to your form on the edge and just make sure your DIP stays neutral. You probably need to use a lower weight. I think that's a really valuable thing to pay attention to in training. But anyways, all that to say, there's nothing magical about these sort of quote standards that we come up with. And I think the 7.3 repeater maybe was just, they thought that's, roughly how long they were holding on to it. If they averaged it out, like that's how long you held on to a hold at any given time. But
and the rest in between, I was trying to like climb the one day and rest 3 seconds in between holds, like on the wall, like I'm falling off in move 4. Like I'm pumped. I need to move a lot faster here. So. Yeah,
totally. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had a boulder problem where it's like you get a hold from some really stretched out or low position. You have to move your feet a bunch and maybe like move your other hand. And then you have to like move your feet and then move your other hand again. And then you have to move your feet again. It's like, then you move off that hold and you've been on that hold for, 25 seconds or something like that. And it really, nothing prepared me for those kind of situations as much as just getting generally stronger, like so that I could tolerate those positions for a longer amount of time. Like I usually need to be stronger than those problems. Like I can't generally do a limit problem where I need to hold on to a hold for that long, unless I did some quote specific training probably. But it just goes to show like what the sort of protocols can set you up well to a point, but I think they should be more general than specific. So I'm kind of tying it back to my previous point.
Totally agree.
All right. Anything else to say on protocols?
No, like we did. We will end on, it doesn't matter what you do, it matters why you do it.
Yeah. Cool. All right, this is perfect because my last I have 2 more. Well, I'll do this one next because I feel like it's very similar to that, which I didn't really want to look at your list, so that's on me. But it's structure specifically without guidance is overrated. So you were talking about this a little bit at the beginning, like there's nothing special about a 1-month plan or anything like that. I just think cookie cutter plans that don't include being able to talk to the person about what the things are and why you're doing them really don't make any sense. And just like general advice from the internet, general advice from videos, I think you get a lot of, it's like a game of Battleship. Right? Like the YouTube comment is like, do this thing, do this like exercise or this protocol or whatever. And it's just them being like E7. And like, sometimes it's going to be a hit, but like most of the time it's just landing in the middle of the ocean, Yeah. Like I think the part that really matters is the connection and the communication. And you can totally get that for free. And if you can get that for free, then you should. Like you don't need to, I'm not saying people need to get coaching necessarily. I just think the guidance part and the connecting to what you're doing and why you're doing it part is like way more important than the structure part. And I would even go a little further and say that like structure can be a drag on the system for a lot of people. So something that I've experienced having coached a lot of climbers now is like people will work with me for a while, we'll make some good gains, their gains will start to plateau, either the person or me, because I do this to my clients sometimes too. I'll be like, hey, I think you're, probably not getting as much out of this as you were at some point. Like, should we call it good here? Which is always like an awkward conversation, but that's like part of the coach client relationship is like pushing people out of the nest. And a lot of the time, those people will snap back to making gains when they get off of the structure, because they actually needed they needed something else. They needed to trust their intuition a little more, or they actually needed to like go a little bit hog wild on the volume for a bit, which a lot of coaches, are myself included, reticent to do. It's like sometimes that structure can be a limiter, and it becomes more about like whether you're getting good guidance or not, and like how strong the relationship is. I also have people I've coached for 3 years that are still making really good gains. It just depends on the situation. So yeah, I'm definitely very cynical about cookie cutter plans.
I love it because you heard it here first. I've gotten rid of my lowest like tier coaching offer that doesn't do any like Zoom calls, because I had the same thing. I've had one person that I can think of that was fantastic, but she was like very messaging me all the time. She always did this stuff and was really good at that part of the communication. But every single and maybe people have gotten something out of it, but every other person that I've had that offer, and the goal was to like give some more approachability to training, it just didn't work. And I felt terrible because I felt like I was just, phase 2's ready. We'll just progress this. And I hate that. It just sears me to not have a conversation with someone. Like I really look forward to the end of phase call where like, show me some wins. Where do we struggle? What are we looking for? Are we going outside? Are we not staying inside? What's your schedule like? And then right there, I can map it, and I feel genuine about this makes sense and this is going to work. But if I'm just giving you random things, like it's not good. It's not healthy. It's not good for you. It's not going to be very put you in the right direction. So I 100% agree that I think it might be semantics, but I had a coach once upon a time say something similar, like the difference between a training plan and a program. Like a program would be the structure analogy, but the plan is like, this is how you're going to think this way. It's more of an algorithm. Like this is what we're going to do. This is why we're doing it. If this happens, we're going here. If this happens, we're going here. Being flexible, communicate with this. Make sure you let me know if you want to switch an exercise left and right. And I let people know when I'm coaching them, like, hey, I know you're not a robot and you're a human, so I want you to tell me if something's going on. I want you to tell me if Monday needs to go to Wednesday, or if exercise needs to switch, or if things are too much or too easy or that. If you just ghost me, that's not helpful to you or me. And it's fine. I've been ghosted many times. But I need this to be a very team effort thing, because this is as much about you as it is me when it comes to decision making and the guidance of this direction. And when it becomes like, oh, thanks for the paper, see you later, some people do well with that, but the average, I think, will not. That is from a coach and a client perspective.
Yeah, totally. It takes I've said this, it takes like a certain type of person to benefit from remote coaching. And I think some amount of self-starterness is like non-negotiable, basically. And if you have enough self-starterness, then structure without guidance probably would work for you. But like I know for myself, like I'm very good at like rolling with the punches and like changing my training as I need to, and like the weather windows and adjusting things as needed and stuff. And like actually what I need from a coach is to like look at my lifts and like tell me to try harder, or tell me the detailed form, or like what thing I need to go like look into, or like what cue to use or whatever. Like that is all I need. I understand how to program like sets and reps for bench press. What I need is to like talk to a human about my bench press, partly because there's just things about it that I don't know a lot, actually, in the case of the bench press, but also partly because if I have that person, then I will invest the like 5 minutes to think about it. And if I don't have that person, then I won't. And so like a spreadsheet on the internet that says 3 sets of bench press these weeks, and then 2 sets of bench press on this week, and then back to 3 sets, like it's just not going to change anything about my training. It's not going to do anything for me that I can't already do by myself. I need the guidance piece.
100%. And that's where I think someone had Brittany, that's her name. That's right. Pink Point Climbing, shout out, awesome coach. She had a thing.
I could have her on the show, actually.
Oh, sick! Cool. Yeah, super cool. She had a comment the other day, or shared a comment where I was like, "Why would you pay for something you can just find all the information on whatever?" And like my comment was like, "I mean, I could build an engine if I wanted to with enough YouTube, but I'm not. I'm going to pay for it to get done faster." But also, me as a personal trainer, like that is where the highest dollars you will pay for something occur. But these people get me in their space, talking, communicating there. And realistically, kind of like you said, I always joke, kind of not really, that 90% of my value is that people show up because they have to come see me in person.
Yeah.
And otherwise, they would not do anything. A lot of these people are smart, capable human beings that could squat if they wanted to. But they will not unless they do it in front of me. And I'm okay with that being my value because it gets people doing the thing and actually healthy. And it goes back to the age-old, like a perfect program never done is way less valuable than like a semi-perfect program that you do more often, that you can consistently do. And that consistency comes from many things. It probably comes more from accountability, a coach, and guidance than it comes from structure.
Dude, if there's one thing that's gotten me to climbing V13 at age 39, or I guess it's 38 when I climb V13, but you know what I mean, climbing the level I'm climbing at, it is a series of extremely imperfect plans done decently well.
Right.
Like I've never had a perfect plan. I've never executed a plan perfectly. It's just a lot of like mediocre, but like always showing up to do mediocre work.
Yeah, show up, do it. 100%. I can agree. Because looking back at me right now, past year, I'm like, I need to start a plan. But I've gotten better at climbing. I've been making progress with certain things, and because I can consistently do something, and I'm not totally taking off, and that's the value in just being, chipping away, letting push the needle a little forward, whatever analogy you want to say, but 100%.
All right, what's your next overrated final one?
Ooh, this is another good one. Principle or method? No, maybe it's principle. Anyway, it is called prehab. Prehab is my overrated thing. Why? Let me tell you a story. Collin in college in baseball felt like he was always the underdog. He was the under 6 foot catcher, and everyone he was competing against was 6'5", massive, strong, probably more handsome. And I felt that I needed to do more, and still to this day I feel like I need to do more. That's why I sleep not as much and read research papers and things and stuff. And in that doing more while in college, I did my practice. And then I went after practice to do more swings. And then I did more throws and more drills. I showed up for my prehab to go to practice and then do my rehab more often. And ultimately what those things are, and it kind of falls into maybe a calisthenics-y category of exercises that have some apparent connection to injury prevention or to performance that are somehow different than other exercises. And really what it is just a bunch of lightweight versions of things that are probably a good stepping point and starting point for someone who's just getting into training or someone who's just getting out of getting hurt. But there is no magic sauce labeling it as a prehab. The best prehab, in my mind, is 364 days before that day that was really, really good with strength training and organization and recovery and sleep and intention in your practice. That's your best prehab. But that takes a lot of time and work. It's not some Theragun wiggly thingy on your finger with a yellow band attached to it for 3 sets of 15 reps. That's not going to make you Boulder V12. But having a really good plan, guidance, no structure, guidance, for 364 days, times 2, times 3, times 4, that's going to get you there.
Doesn't have to be no structure. Doesn't have to be no. I'm not anti-structure. I'm just anti-structure without guidance. Anyways.
That's right. You heard it here first. There's no structure to climbing. All you gotta do is climb.
Totally. Freewheeling.
And I guess because it's like in the running world, it's a classic. Oh man, I hurt myself because I didn't stretch before that thing. I didn't do that, or I didn't do my little ankle walks, or ice hockey guys, I didn't do my hip activation. Climbers, I didn't do my little finger weird rubber band thing. Like, no, that is not the reason you got hurt or the reason you didn't send. And it's maybe superstitious or psychology or this thing they kind of got into, which is fine. That might take some time to break out of.
Oh, it's strengthening. just call it strengthening at that point, right?
Right. Yeah, it's if we all just it's all the same stuff like calisthenics, prehab, strength training, climbing on a moon board, whatever. Like we're all engaging with force and this physicality of our body in ways that we're trying to progress, and we just need to know where we're at in the spectrum and what's the most appropriate part of that spectrum to be engaging with at the time. But it's the labeling of things that I think gets really people caught up in it inappropriately, and it drives misconceptions and it drives people ultimately, like in my eyes as a coach, it wastes people's time and it kind of gives them too much to do, and it might actually be overdoing it, where we can just be allocating our resources more appropriately.
Well, there's just too many moving parts in climbing, in my opinion, to like micromanage every single one of them with some small specific thing that like tries to target that. It's like, okay, you have your wrists have like given you some signals that they maybe don't feel totally prepared to do the level of climbing that you want to do. Yeah, hell yeah, let's like strengthen the muscles that act on the wrist. I think that's a great idea. We can work on like wrist extension and flexion and ulnar and radial deviation and like train it in all these different ways and strengthen it. But I don't want you to keep doing that at a 10-pound level like indefinitely. I would want it to become something where it's just on your strength training day, you're doing it to a high intensity. And I think the other side of the equation really matters. So like we're talking about the kind of, I guess you'd say the input side of the equation, which is like how you train. And then the output side of the equation would be like how you climb and stuff like that. Like I've had this conversation with Natasha, because she likes to say like there's no overtraining, there's only underprepared, or there's no overuse. Sorry, there's no overuse, there's only underprepared. Mm-hmm. And I'm swayed by that argument. I think it's like very adjacent to this like don't bother with something called prehab argument. Except for to me, I think sometimes in climbing, maybe other climbers would be able to relate to this. Sometimes I go try something and it's really fucking hard on a very specific part of my body. And now is the season and I want to try to do this boulder. And I just sort of accept like, I don't have time to bulletproof this thing. I can't go back 12 months and start training this thing that I needed. Right. So like, this is what I got. This is where I'm at. It's going to probably hurt. And I'm maybe taking on some risk. And that thing is tweaky for a while, and then a few months later it feels fine because like my body can take some abuse and like bounce back from it. And that attitude I think has been really helpful for me. Again, to call back to the baby thing, like there's no amount of training that I could have done that would have prepared me for the stuff that I need to do, because you're just doing, the dosage of it is so high. So to say that I'm underprepared is like, well, yeah, I guess I could have been like carrying around a kettlebell 10 hours a day a year ago to like prepare for this.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's like the second time around you get to blame the underprepared, because now you could be underprepared. But for the thing that comes out of nowhere,
if it was a second baby, the second time around you'd be fucked because you'd still be carrying around the first baby. That seems to be what happens to people. You learn no lessons and you have double the load. Yeah, yeah. Can't even think about that right now. Okay, yeah. I think there's a time and a place for like. It's very adjacent to the specific exercises thing. There's like a time and a place for like very detailed sort of training, but just broad strengthening, I think, is the answer in most cases.
Yeah, because I think you boil it down to like warming up, climbing, training. Those are the main categories. But on to the next.
Agree. Okay, my last overrated is going to take a hard turn away from physical training. My last overrated is video beta. I really debated putting it in here. I think using video beta is turning the average Joe climber, especially outside climber, into a worse climber than they would have been. It was like for here's what I think is happening. I think people who have been climbing, let's say in the 3 to 5 year range, are climbing much harder grades than they were 10 years ago and 20 years ago, obviously, but they're not as good of climbers as they were 10 years or 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Just to clarify, they're watching a video on how to do the thing and they just copy that beta and they go climb the climb.
Yeah. And, or even more, more like detailed ways of engaging. So like going to your project with many videos downloaded, looking at all the videos, sorting them out, picking your beta from all the videos you've seen. Maybe use a combination of different beta, but really in the end, just kind of doing like a plug and play instead of having to actually go through the creative process. This is going to sound very disparaging, and I want to preface it by saying I use video beta all the time. I just sent something that I'm really proud of, like a few weeks after I became a dad, and I used the exact same beta as the first Ascensionist that had his video. His beta worked for me. I use video beta. It's not a bad thing to do, but if it's sort of like if you compare just drawing something on a piece of paper versus doing a paint by numbers. Like I think taking video beta to the crag and then climbing the thing with the video beta is kind of paint by numbers. It's like technically you've painted an owl or whatever it is, right? And like if I tried to draw an owl without the paint by numbers thing helping me, like I would draw a really bad owl. But I actually think a lot of climbers would benefit hugely from going back to that blank page and drawing really bad things for like quite a long time. There's just a creativity in that process and a learning what your body can do and how to engage with the rock and like even like what's a grabbable surface and like what you can put your foot on and stuff. Like I'm not trying to hurt people's feelings, so I hope that people hear this constructively, but like the number of times I've climbed with people outside where there's a little tick mark on the foot that other people use, and so that's the place they put their foot, and I'm like, it's granite, bro. Like the whole foot, the whole square foot around where it's ticked is like a good foothold if you put your foot at the right angle, you like dorsiflex the right amount. And it's kind of wild to me, having climbed outside for so long, that people just sort of don't know that that's how the footholds work, you know?
Yeah. This kind of ties into my first underrated one, which I think of what we're talking about, the same thing. And this is so true because I know I do the same thing. I will take some beta if I'm struggling on something just because my goals that day are maybe to like see where I'm at numeric wise with the grade. But I took some of my members from my boardroom outdoor bouldering for the very first time because they were interested in like a local comp that was happening, outdoor comp. And so I wanted to take them out earlier and a weekend earlier so we could just do it by ourselves rather than get overwhelmed. Long story short, they're like, whoa, this like, what's on? I'm like, yes. Mm-hmm. Like, no, that's not helpful. I'm like,
all
yes.
on, yeah.
It's all on. It's like, well, I was like, yes, engage. And I think people, to tie into this person, there's this weird balance that you kind of want to provide some successes with someone. Because if you take every beginner off the street, they go into a regular gym and it's graded like outdoor grades. And V0 was like a 512. Everyone gets shut down. Bad business model, right? No one's coming back to buy a membership. So success experiences beget something more into the future. So there is some value there. But ultimately, where this comes from, there's a really good book that I've talked about a lot, like Range, David Epstein, where they call it desirable difficulties. And you want those desirable difficulties early and often because it sucks. It's like in the moment, but 5 years from now, you are so much better. And then you're even better when you watch the beta video. But if you only get the answers to the test and you aren't allowed to think critically throughout that process, you don't really get to the learning experience that you want. And you will then get frustrated later on when you still can't figure things out, even though you maybe climb V8 because you have the physical ability and then you know what to kind of copy. But yeah, I totally agree that it's not fun, really, unless you have like the mindset to it. So it's a little bit of a coaching psychological thingy going on. But
very vulnerable.
Yeah, 100%. Like you have to be out there. Like you're gonna suck really badly just looking at this rock and like I'm gonna slap a little bit. And the phone's right here. It's right here. All you gotta do, and you know where to put your hand. And something might happen better. But if you figure it out on your own and you digest that, and the feedback is, oh, this is why my tension. I felt this thing. My hand hit here. This is what opened up the next process. That is where you really get good long term at anything.
I think the antidote, for what it's worth, I think the antidote is humility. Like I've had this process play out a bunch of times for me where this happened a bunch in like font. And it used to happen to me all the time because there just weren't beta videos yet in a big way. And then when they started to be around, it was like, I wouldn't go look for them first. So I would like climb on something, fail miserably, and then later be like, I wonder if anybody else has climbed this, like what would now be a very popular problem in like Bishop or something. But at the time I would be like, I'm going to Google this thing and see if anybody has a beta video. And like, lo and behold, like Andy Liu had a beta video, 15 years ago. And you see what they did and you're just, you smack your forehead. You're just like, oh my God, it was so obvious, but I spent 3 hours out there and I'm bleeding out of 4 of my tips because I just like refused to give up. And now I have to rest for 2 days before I can go back. It's a very humiliating sort of experience because it makes you feel like you're not as good of a climber or like you've done something wrong when you have this like quote failure, which is really just a whole process of like drawing really shitty owls on the paper and like
Yeah.
trying to figure out what it's supposed to look like and what you're supposed to. I don't know why I'm picking owls for this. I feel like there's like an owl drawing meme or something stuck in my head. But yeah, having had that experience a bunch of times, you sort of start to become comfortable with it in the sense that as long as you go into the experience with what you want to get out of it, being to engage with the rock and like see what you can do and like see really like where like can I beat this thing, you know? Because I feel like once you pull the video beta, it's not a cheat code. I'm not saying that you're cheating or anything like that, but you really are like bringing it down to a different level. And I think we just, yeah, I guess that's my hot take for the day is like, I think we don't talk about that enough, that like doing things with a video of how somebody else did it is not quite the same as like showing up and figuring it out for yourself. And being really humble and just accepting that you're going to suck is probably the way around that.
Right. And I think even translates to like comp climbing. Imagine if every one of those people got like the beta video for it. It would be a totally different competition. And who wins the competitions the most are the ones that have those innate built up skills that can problem solve and pattern recognize way better than that. Aside from the mental side and, confidence, blah, blah, blah. But
yeah,
fundamentally those. And if you're outdoor climber world, like the on-site climbers, like your friends that have the highest on-site ability are those climbers versus your friends that have a great red point ability. They're a little different. Right?
yeah.
They can just put, I'm a great red pointer. I can bulldog my way, show me where to go, I'll fight. But my on-site ability is still trying to figure it out. Like, especially bouldering right now. I'm like one of these people where I go up, I'm like, I think I know what to do. And it just takes me a long time. But if I want some volume and I have skin, like I said, I'll pull some video and boom, I can put it up together. So I'm really, really good at physically doing it and committing and whatnot. But my bucket to fill is that total recognition, because I have those moments where I'm like, oh yeah, I should have looked at that thing and I should have looked at that, and this now makes a ton of sense and I can feel it and I absorb it. I still learn a little bit, but you do not learn as deeply as you do when you kind of figure it out on your own.
I would go so far as to say like you'll hit a very early plateau. Yes. With your sort of on-siting and like ideating beta, like coming up with beta. You just won't. If you don't flex that muscle at all, it'll never develop basically, and you'll just be like stuck at the same level forever. And I say that as someone who's not like a particularly good on-siter, as far as like actual on-siting goes, but I can stand there and look at a boulder and figure out what to do because I've spent so much time doing that. And I've said this before on other podcasts, but I'm kind of lucky because there just wasn't video beta when I started. So I had to suffer. I didn't have a choice.
But now you are you. Because of that.
Yeah. And it's also, I guess I should have said this too before we move on, but it's like, I think personally the creative part of like, oh, could I like heel hook this thing? And like, should I match this hold? And like, or should I hold it this way? Or should I put my thumb here? Or like, should I jump to that? Like, I think that's like the coolest part is it's like, it really does feel like playing a musical instrument or like doing art or something like that. It's very creative.
And I love when my coaching like one-on-one, and the people I can think of, I set something up on the spray wall or a climb, and they're like, well, does this make sense? Should I put my right hand here? I'm like, I don't know. Try it. And then we're going to try the right hand. And then we're going to give each enough time to iron out the quality of that. One of them is going to come out an A+, one of them is going to come out a B+. They're both probably going to work, but one's going to feel a little better. And you're going to do every single option, and you're going to learn from why those options feel really good and don't feel really good. That's how we're going to do it. Even though it might be the right hand, so.
I have a client the other day who sent me a few videos of herself trying something, and she was like, I'm not sure what to do on this move. Like, I was wondering if I should try a heel. Do you think I should try a heel? And I was like, if you ask me if I think you should try something, you definitely should try it. Like, don't ask me. Like, yes, go try the other method. Like, for sure. That's how you get that, like, that little piece of learning. So cool. Underrated. Kick us off.
Underrated. I gotta go find your thing again.
Mine are so basic. Goddamn.
Yeah, mine's a little basic, but we'll start off with something fun. We'll keep people going since they've been listening to this pretty good. And I think it ties into what we just talked about in the overrated world. So the underrated is kind of that idea of finding these desirable difficulties and really focusing on better intention in skill-based learning and climbing. And so I don't know if there's a thing there that is overrated, but I think focusing on those days where you are not sending and you're just experiencing is so overrated. So maybe there it is. Underrated. It is underrated.
You heard it here first, folks. Sending's
the only thing that matters.
It's all sending, yeah.
All I care about is your moonboard beta videos.
Yeah.
So what is most underrated is just going out and experiencing the climb for climbing and for improvement in these buckets. And I will first start off with, I think Udo Neumann is a fantastic example of this in the modern climbing sphere. And for those who don't know Udo, maybe you're living under rocks rather than climbing them. But he is one of Germany's best bouldering coaches for once upon a time before some things happened.
The world. He's one of the best in the world.
And in the world, too.
Come on.
But also Germany, too. Yeah. In the world.
Germany's in the world, so yeah.
Germany's checks out. They are very good at what they do. They collect data like fiends. They're awesome people to work with. And so he is bringing to the climbing forefront about skill acquisition and how can we practice climbing in a sense of not just climbing and fingers and edges, but making a human that is more capable of problem solving. And it stems back, I think the one words he used in it was emergence theory, but it also stems back to, I think, a 1967 paper, Dynamic Systems Theory, with Nikolai Bernstein. And I think this paper is in German or Russian. I think it's German. And so it was translated. So there's a little bit of translation issue possibly. But this studied anvil strikers, blacksmiths, striking an anvil. And at the time had the little white dots. And what they found was when the anvil was being struck, the blacksmiths with the weirdest and most variable arc paths hit their target most accurately, most consistently over time. And it brought on this idea that with more variability, there are more problems to the solution that was hammer on anvil. And this leads into climbing and learning. And back to the book I talked about with range, is that there are closed system sports and things, and then there are open system sports and things. So a closed system idea would be like chess. There are rules, and that's it. You can't do anything else besides the rules of chess. But in climbing, you just get to the top, and there are limitless amounts of things you must interact with. Not only because the rock types are all different, whatnot, but now in the modern comp setting, it's just the creativity of the person and the route setter. And now we have different color holds and different shapes and different ways and different styles, and they're clear. And so there's just this endless new possibilities of problems. So back to that is, I really love that because my mobility course that's on the C4HB site, I did the dynamic systems theory a while. So it was cool. I was like, yay, me and Udo thinking the same. Woohoo! Pat myself on the back. But being one that can dive into those desirable difficulties and engage with more experiential practice through variety, I think that person is going to show up to a unique problem with more solutions than the person next to them. And so me and you show up to the boulder, and if you're always next to a person, you go, how did you think of that? That's that person. That person has more solutions because they have experienced more, where all you have is maybe the beta video and the first time looking at that. And there are training educational companies that I really loved. Functional Range Systems was one of the first to implement this and where I learned it. So shout them out. Awesome people. Where we take it one step further with training is we want to create a variety of experiences through practice, but we also want to create a body that is capable of handling a lot of experience. And a very fundamental version of this is if you have a frozen shoulder or a broken shoulder, it can't move through range of motion, thus it can't experience those things. So it can't build strength, but it also can't do movements involved in that space that you can't move through. And so this system physically was, let's create a body that is capable of moving through a lot of different positions, a lot of different spaces, in a lot of different ways, with capability and usability. That way it can engage in various ways in its sports. Thus, you build up this massive playbook, so to speak, of solutions to any unique problem that you're going to be faced, even if the problem that you face is not one that you've seen before, because it probably won't be. And so I think that could be a whole podcast in itself, is one of the most underrated ways to go out and climb is just go climb for experience. And another specific example of how you can do this from a coach, Gabe Olson, that love the way he works and used to work for us and all that. One of the drills I first heard from him that maybe do: climb the thing, but don't start the start hold and don't go to the top. Like he does it with his youth kids, and he takes that away from them, and they're like, "But then why do I do it?" It's like, because it's all about, like Miley Cyrus said, it's all about the climb. So you have to experience the middle and what it's really about. And so if you take the send and the start away, you learn that it's more than just that. So
I think that's makes sense. I mean, to go straight back to the video beta thing about like you said, chess is a closed system, climbing is like generally a very open system, and sometimes there are rules with climbs, like, you know, you can't use the arete or whatever. That does happen occasionally, but like broadly speaking, those are lower quality problems most of the time. And that's a quote contrivance, right, is what we would call it. We actually, our sport is such an open system that as soon as there's a single rule, we're like, oh, that's contrived. We like talk shit on it, which I agree. It's not as cool. It's like automatically not as cool if you have to have some sort of boundaries as to how you're like allowed to solve the problem. And I think that is sort of like what people want when they're like, well, what's in, you know, what are the holds? It's like they want a chessboard. They want a very clear, like, here are the black spaces, here are the white spaces, and you have these pieces with these rules. You know, you're allowed to crimp, you're allowed to open hand, you're allowed to whatever. Anytime there's like people start dividing into like, these are all the moves in rock climbing, it's like you can heel hook, you can toe hook, you know, it's like they start making a list, and I'm like, I don't think that really makes a lot of sense. I think it's much more broad than that. And yeah, you want to learn all of those different arcs that you can hit the anvil through, right? Which means, I think, maybe not trying deliberately to be spastic or abstract with it, but at least being open-minded about the way that you engage with it. And to Gabe's credit and your credit, like, taking away the carrot is probably a pretty smart way to make it a more creative sort of experience. Like, I also was a route setter, and I think when you're a route setter, instead of getting to the top, the goal becomes like, well, I want to like learn something about this type of move or try to get people to engage with it. I want to like, it's almost like you're speaking a language to someone that they don't know. You're trying to like teach them something through the language of like the holds you put on the wall. And it's such a different skill and different activity, but you learn all the same stuff from it. But it totally takes out that like goal-oriented, I need to get to the top thing. And so you wind up learning like so much about climbing movement. And I'm lucky to have had those experiences for sure, but those are, you know, people can fabricate the same sort of experiences by just engaging with the wall different, you know, make up problems on the holds, take holds off of the problems that you're climbing, add holds to the problems you're climbing, try to climb the wall in 3 moves, you know, like that was always a fun thing that I would do, is like just try, you know, when I wanted to get better at dynoing, it was like, I'm going to pick 3 holds and like try to get to the top of the wall, which now that's just like what the gym setting is by itself sometimes.
Yep. 100%.
These days. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think one other thing that made me think of was, if people do follow Udo, which I recommend they do, they'll see him having athletes do all kinds of crazy shit that sounds very similar to the stuff that we were talking about earlier, where I was harping on like being really specific and being really functional, trying to make your training like match your climbing. The important thing to understand is that when he's having people balance on stuff, or like, you know, swing from something and like jump to something else and like do a spin in midair or whatever, he's not repeatedly engaging with that in order to try to get stronger for climbing. The challenges are different every time. He's just using like higher balance, higher coordination, less climbing like scenarios to like challenge people with their coordination in different ways. But it's not a training. I wouldn't really call what he's doing like training necessarily, or at least not in the sense that it's like trying to get some adaptation other than just problem solving. Like the problem solving is the adaptation in that case.
100%. It's like coordination, cognitive learning. That's what he's like. He's building like a bunch of cats that can just like control themselves through space no matter what happens. And all of a sudden there's a comp problem. Boom. Now they have this higher, I think classically and maybe most simply, it's like that mind-body connection.
Yeah.
Like you just know who you are and where you are in space. That person that goes to try any climbing problem, they're going to have a higher rate of success than someone who is clunky.
And a lot of like mental resilience too, of just being like your coach just being like, okay, now like grab this ring with one arm and then like swing to the other one, and then you need to like do a spin and land backwards like on the Bosu ball or whatever. Like that, just being able to be like, okay, coach, like, yeah, I can do that. Like, I think there's a lot of merit in that in terms of pushing athletes. That like, makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it doesn't, for me, it doesn't go into the weeds of the like functional sort of training trap. Yeah. Which it may at a glance kind of seem to be the same thing. So,
right. Which is the whole, like, not what you're doing, but why you're doing it.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool, good one. All right, my first underrated is very broad, and maybe this one's a little too obvious. I don't know, but it's leg training. It's let's go. I just think climbers should train their legs more. I'm not the only person who said this, and it doesn't even need to be.
I hope you lose all your followers because of that. How dare you?
I don't think that I like made some content on squatting, and somebody was like messaging me and being like, why do you really think all climbers should squat? And I'm like, no, I don't think all climbers should do barbell back squat. Like that's not necessary. I do think it's a really good exercise, and I think it's, of the big three, by far like the most underappreciated among climbers, especially since until you're climbing at a 45, you're probably doing more squatting than you are pulling, or at least I could make an argument that you are.
Sure.
And yeah, if you take the whole lens of like the goal is to get stronger so that you can do all the things you have to do in order to do the sport, like squatting is just a badass thing. But even from the perspective of like how many climbers I've worked with who have hurt their LCL or their meniscus or even their hamstring or their popliteus, like those kind of injuries are all so common just from heel hooking, not even like falls, but just actually like heel hooking on the wall. And honestly, I could deadlift over 300 pounds and my hamstrings would still hurt when I would do like really intense heel hooking, and they didn't really stop. I didn't stop. I mean, knock on wood, it's been a while since I had any issues with even a really intense heel hook. It's been over a year. And I think it's specifically because of the leg curl machine. I mean, I think the leg curl machine, and if you read the research on, I think most of it's on ACLR, the leg curl machine is like money, basically.
It's so good.
For soccer players who are like recovering from ACL injury, which makes sense. I mean, that's very different than a heel hook, but it's the full range of motion and you're under load the whole time. And
it's the same tissue doing like the same direction. Like I have another post I reposted, that little hamstring curl machine, right? And I feel the same way, not only because the hamstring is literally, because to like get the heel into the wall, the knee must bend and the hamstring is doing a lot of that work. So boom, hamstring curl work. But like you said, the resiliency and the tissue quality just to do a bunch of that stuff. But also the aha for me too is, I go on maybe a edgier, slightly overhung thing. I have a particular ability. Give me something to squeeze and put my heels on, and you see how much I can hamstring curl machine. Mm-hmm. I'm very convinced if I find my right thing and I'm super healthy, like V8, 9, 10, very quickly can happen if I get that ability. Because I can hamstring curl. My strength to weight ratio of my hamstring curl is night and day better than my fingers. Yeah. And I think it's that thing too, where if you leg train, you give yourself more physical capability. You get two other limbs that you could use to your benefit. Why not have them capable?
They're significantly stronger than your arms.
Hell
Even on the people who don't train their legs are significantly stronger than their arms. But the potential for strength in your legs is like insane. I mean, they're just much, much bigger muscles, and I think people don't really appreciate that enough. I think I'm maybe lucky in the sense that my climbing style like developed to be very leg dominant from the get-go. I just am built like a daddy long legs, and my arms and legs are like the same sort of length. So my body was just like, I'll just use all of these equally. And I got lucky that mingled well with the style of climbing here in the Northwest. And if you want to climb V8, 9, 10 without strong fingers, I think the Northwest is like a very, very good place to do it. You might be on the wrong side of the country.
Booking my tickets. I'll just come see you.
Yeah, totally, man.
Watch. I'm in.
Come on over. So, I would just say, if you don't train your legs, you probably should. That's probably it's underrated, man. It's fucking sick. It's really good for your climbing.
Definitely. Stamp that. And so mine, I just put strength. So I'll just say that right away. But I totally agree. So specifically to legs, 100%. But I think overall, there's this weird.
Wait, your second underrated is strength?
Yeah, it was just strength.
Fuck yeah.
So just strength training, absolute strength training, underrated.
Nice. That actually is true, though.
It's in the climbing world, in the running world, it's all worlds. For some reason, and I think there's a weird don't hear what I'm not saying going on too sometimes with conversations where anytime we bring up strength training, it's like, well, that's not how I got good at climbing. It's like, that's not what I said. I didn't say that bench press is good for crimping your way up a wall. I said it's good for you and it will help you do those things, but it's not the direct thing. And if you really talk to, I think, any strength coach across the board that knows what they're talking about, no one would ever agree that like bench press or squat, oh yeah, that's how I got V10. Like, no, it helped you do the things. And one day maybe we'll get on the same page with everyone in the Instagram dark world, but not the point. But I think it is so underappreciated to make you a better human, to make you more resilient, to aid in performance, like we're talking about. Like, it does have performance benefits as well.
For
sure. And you can do both. It's not this one fits all or all or nothing approach where you need an hour to do it. I think it's a big limiter as well, as people have this misconception about how they must engage with strength training. Like, it has to be a 60 or 90-minute session. It has to be 4 days a week. And my news story now is back to these ice hockey guys. I've got 25, granted, they're all 22 to 32 years old, capable, physical, experienced person. But I have 25 guys in a tiny 500 square foot facility and a hallway. And we do 9 exercises with legs, push, pull, run, jump, box jump, all in 30 minutes at an appropriate dose. So don't tell me you don't have time to do it. Even like the youth kids, but like, oh, we have a 4-hour practice. When are we going to lift? What do you mean? 4 hours? I would die for 4 hours. That'd be awesome. That's too much time. Go to bed. But it's not this 1 hour or it doesn't count thing. It's just engage. Like, I have the busy coach world. You've got busy dad life now. If you do one exercise like every 45 minutes throughout the whole day, guess what? You're getting stronger.
That's fine. Yeah.
Totally fine. So I think those beliefs and things need to get broken down, and then people will realize how easy it is and how little time they need to invest if their dose is appropriate, and then over time, how better they feel on and off the wall.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, I think for general population, it's actually so underrated that like most people in the gen pop like don't even know what we're talking about when they say strength training. Like, they can't differentiate like weightlifting from Taibo. Like, they don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's wildly underrated for general population. And for climbers, it's definitely underrated. And I've already whinged about this on other platforms, but like, you get these influencers on YouTube, benching 225 because they climb 515 and they're just genetic gods. And I don't know what else. I don't know. They've probably been doing lots of different forms of training since they were little kids, but they have that thing that I was talking about at the beginning where like some people just respond really well to exercise and get high levels of recruitment without ever doing weightlifting. It's not true for everybody. And then they say like, they're like benching 225 without ever doing it. And they're like, yeah, I just don't think this is like very useful for climbing. And I'm like, okay, well, what about for the rest of us who can't fucking bench 2 plates without training? Like, it might hold some value for the rest of us down here in the mortal land. So,
yep.
Hell yeah. That's a good one. My second one is just as anodyne as my first. So my second underrated is just cardio. I think, and again, people get that like specific or sort of they want it to like work well for climbing, or they want it to be like very direct for climbing. They'll be like, oh, cardio like makes sense for sport climbing, or like cardio make my sport climbing better. I don't think it needs to be even about that. I think cardio is really, really valuable for boulderers. And I've sort of talked about that other places. I think I talked about that on like the struggle bouldering Q&A that I did. But yeah, I think cardio is right there with strength training for making you I did not plan to do these in this order, by the way, because I didn't look at yours on purpose.
Perfect.
But it's the same thing. And this is one where like, I think for me personally, it just makes me feel way better. like strength training makes me feel better too, but cardio, like if I'm not doing it regularly, I really start to notice that I'm dragging and that I'm not recovering from my other exercise as well. Mentally, I'm not as sharp. And I say that like for strength training, I think I have a little bit of a I'm just kind of lucky. I really like it. I really like the way strength training feels. And so I made a huge investment and I got a rack in my garage and I can just run out there and do it. Cardio I don't like. I don't like doing it. It's not fun. I've gotten better at it. I can kind of like muddle through it. And so it's hard for me to make myself do it. And that's how I know how valuable it is and how underrated it is like now that I'm looking down the year at being 40, it's just harder and harder for me to keep up with it, and I really notice when I am not doing it.
Sure. Yes. All to yes. I feel the same way when I fall off the wagon with my cardio. I was back when I was training for my 50K race. I was running a lot and cycling a lot and ellipticaling a lot. And dude, when I was walking to the crag, I was a superhuman. I was like, that was the easiest hike into the crag I've ever had in my life. And my recovery was amazing. And now I don't run anymore because of the physical costs, so I trade it into lifting and climbing. But I thoroughly miss how fit and healthy I was from that level and amount of cardio I was doing. 8, 9, 10 hours a week kind of stuff, which goes into impractical land sometimes with people, even though it might be in biologically appropriate land, which is, hashtag philosophy of our world. But it's so important. And if you want to get into like the specifics of like better recovery, better blood flow transport, all the mitochondria and energy processing things, those things, you use them on the wall. So why not have the entire system awesome and buffered and great and ready to go? Besides the fact that, your heart's important as a human, I guess that's important too,
Yeah. And I feel, I start to feel bad with these kind of podcasts, and it's why I don't do a ton of this format. I'm trying to get more open-minded about it. But I don't want people to think that we're just telling them that they have to do all this stuff that they don't want to do. And, to your point, like if you can train all those hockey guys who are going super hard in the gym and probably really, having to move a lot of weight plates on and off the barbells and all that kind of stuff, like, and they can do it all in 30 minutes. I think other people can too. Cardio 100%. Is probably a little bit more of a time investment and definitely can be an equipment investment if you don't like running like me.
Well, it could be fun too, and maybe it's a follow-up or what we do, but we can go into these things and then go down those how-to rabbit holes. Because I know even for me, with cardio right now, do you need to train like a marathoner or a centennialist cyclist, like anyway, no, like you don't need 15 to 25 hours of this kind of stuff. No. I think the WHO's guidelines is like 150 minutes of easy to moderate or 75 minutes of moderate to hard per week are good enough. I don't think it's WHO, or maybe I'll have to say if it's based off the U.S. population, probably not a good thing. But that's besides the point. I think those numbers are still good to hit. And what is nice, if you have the capability, is you can get in these like shorter things, and they work. So you can go on a cycle or a hike and do a little intervals, or the 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off, and you can just make it suck for 5 or 10 minutes, and you're getting cardiovascular benefit. And so you can have that in your back pocket for these weeks and months. That time is a commodity and scarce, right? But we also, in the grand scheme of things, you want to go out for the walks and the hikes and things that last like 20, 30, or 40 minutes that are easy. The heart does respond differently and respiratory-wise. So, but you don't always need that hour-long walk, or it doesn't count mentality. You can do the 5-minute thing and just do the 5-minute thing. It is what it is. It's better than sitting on the couch and then your heart not do that.
Yeah, totally. This is I just moved my walking pad to a place where I can use it a little bit more easily, and this is like reinforcing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to use it later tonight. Gotta be good.
But that's a big thing, like removing the friction too. Like all those things matter. Like take the clothes off the treadmill that you have downstairs. Like bring it into a space where you can see it. Put it right in front of the TV for Netflix. Like
I was thinking about making a piece of content for this because my folks were just here for Thanksgiving, and my dad, who I absolutely love, he was doing a bunch of chores around the house and coming in and out through the garage, and he just kept like using my press bench as like a he would just like put a bunch of stuff on it when he would come from I'd just leave it there, and then I'd go out to lift and I'd be like, God damn it. Like, and I realized like, wow, I keep this area like very clear because I just know myself. Like if I go out there and there's going to be like jumper cables hanging from the barbell, like I'm going to be like, well, I can't bench today because it's like stuff in the way.
So true. Remove the friction. It's huge. It's huge.
All right. What's your next underrated?
Underrated. Final one. And maybe it's better phrased as like an anti-overrated, but I think one of my underrated things is the value in maybe active flexibility versus passive stretching all the time, if that makes sense.
As far as the training method and not as far as the adaptations, sure.
And this stems from work that I have with many people of athletes or not, climbers or not. A lot of people, I have many stories of people going, wow, I feel so tight, I didn't stretch, this is why I'm in pain, this is why I'm hurting, this is why my physical therapist said I have shin splints, blah blah blah. And I will go through an assessment with them, and they are a loose cooked noodle with range of motion. I'm like, no, like I don't think you need to do a bunch of more yoga or stretching for 20 minutes in one position. I think you need more control and strength and usability out of your body. And so these people generally need the first one, which was like the general mid-range strength training. But this end range thing, I think, is where people will make the most benefit from. And this definitely speaks to climbers who maybe tend to be more flexible, but there are the population that have bad hips. And then those that are like maybe comp coaches or really elite level people that are probably elite because they have this nice level of flexibility with them. If you also take that pancake you're sitting in and squeeze the legs into the ground or push the legs apart or create some isometric effort, you're going to get so much more bang for your buck, not only in range of motion that you can use, but that is resilient because there's force producing capability to fight back against the forces of the rock or the position, but also this longevity in like joint health and mobility, which is the ultimate movement capability of your body. So I think we just hyper fixate in sitting in the pancake for 10 minutes rather than learning how to use the joints in the pancake.
Yeah, for me these days, I think passive stretching, like chilling in something like a pancake, is more of it's almost like a mental health thing. It doesn't feel, it definitely is not doing anything to help my climbing at this point. And partly because I just don't push those things anymore, because what I've noticed actually like helps my flexibility. And when I say flexibility, I'm thinking about my ability to be strong in a range of motion that is more extreme. It's just all strength training. And I don't even program really. I don't really program separate flexibility sessions anymore unless people really want to have a separate session they can do on a different day. I would much rather have people like superset their loaded end range training. Like, you know, you do a bench press and then you do a horse stance or something, or like a incline bench pigeon or whatever. Like it just makes more sense to me to have it be part of the strength training, because that's what I think of it as now.
Go figure. Weird. It's all the same. It's all force. It's just different. Yeah.
I will say, one thing I will say is if people are like really interested in improving their flexibility, I think the understanding what you're talking about, which I would say isometric stretching is like the general bucket to understand, is really, really valuable to go down the road of learning how it works. So that's like actually using your own muscles to stretch your own muscles. So like squeezing the agonist to stretch the antagonist, or vice versa, however you want to think about it. That has a lot of merit just because it's no equipment, you know, and it's like hyper portable. So I think that's useful, but even that I would probably superset with strength training because of time reasons. And it's like, that's when I'm training my body that isn't climbing. So it just makes more sense to me to do it is one thing. Sick. Good one. All right, my last one. I guess my other two underrated were very general. This one's maybe kind of a curveball, but it's bouldering alone. I think bouldering alone is underrated these days. I talk to a lot of climbers, and I talk to a lot of climbers who will only go to what the crew is going to, or they'll only go out if their crew is going to it, or they're just very, you know, the wind blows west, I go west kind of thing. And I totally get that. It's a very social sport. I love bouldering with other people. I just think there's something really again, it's that like very humbling, very challenging experience. There's something super interesting and valuable about climbing by yourself. And like you can't get other people aren't around to defray your emotions, so it's much easier to get frustrated. It's much easier to like stay focused, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. Like when you're climbing with other people, you know, you can kind of like, oh, I'm like frustrated, I'm not having fun right now, I'm gonna like chit chat to this person or like pet this dog or whatever. And that's like a little bit less of a thing when you're climbing by yourself. I think I can reach a higher level of focus, which can be more productive but also more irritating or like frustrating or whatever. But I think one of the biggest things that happens when you boulder alone more is when you boulder with other people. I think you start to sort of, it's like everybody takes a little bit of responsibility for the safety, and it sort of winds up being that nobody's fully responsible for it. Like you'll see 10 people at a boulder and they have a bunch of crash pads down, but it's just this totally scattered like pigeon nest of a landing, and like there's lots of gaps and, you know, pads upside down, and which the foam does matter, people. Like you don't want to have your pads upside down. There's two different types of foam in your crash pads. That's a different podcast. Anyways, you'll see people doing that, and you'll just sort of be like, how is it there's 10 people climbing on this thing and like no one's taking responsibility for how they're going to fall? Versus if you're climbing alone, you have to be very cognizant to be like, okay, I'm out here by myself. I decide where the pads go. I decide where I'm going to fall. I need to be like really smart and careful. And obviously it can be a higher risk situation, that goes without saying. But I think the way to get better at managing that risk is to engage with it directly and not to like avoid it. Because when you avoid it, you're just sort of acting like there's something magically safe about climbing with another person, which maybe it's 10% more safe or something like that, but it's not 100% more safe unless you have the skills to know where the pads go and how to fall and all that other like really important stuff. So it's kind of goes to the video beta thing. I want people to think more like climbers from 20 years ago when it comes to their actual climbing, not when it comes to their training, and then maybe think more modern about their actual training.
No, that's so cool. And I accidentally kind of fall into that because I really got into bouldering because of just needing to climb more and having friends that schedules don't align. And what I think that's how a lot of sport climbers get into bouldering is we lose friends and we're like, well, I just go touch the little rocks by myself. Mm-hmm. And doing that, I do feel it's just such a really nice experience too. There's no better way, like going in the morning before work and I'm just out there in the woods and I hop on a rock, but it's on my time. No one's getting in the way. I'm getting better at it, but I do have people are around me. Things like, ooh, can I do this? Or like, haha, use humor to like joke off. And now more or less people know I'm a coach, and I'm like, am I allowed to fall at this thing because I'm a coach? You know, and so all these little things. But I'm like, stop that, go. All right, then back on. So I can rewrite it. But I'm human. Like I have these thoughts, and those are important to engage with because I'll never only climb alone. But climbing alone does allow me to have a little bit more availability of that flow state because it's just me, it's just the rock. I can be more analytical. You know, there's less people to chit chat about the beta with, so it does allow me to engage with a more experiential version of climbing. So I can double and triple click on climbing alone is awesome for those reasons.
Nice. Yeah. There was a phase where I thought I was really going to get into top rope soloing for the same reason, and I have all the gear, and it is really fun. That's like a whole different kettle of fish, I guess, is the word to say. Yeah. Cool. All right. I guess that's the whole list. We did it.
That was 3 and 3 of our 8 or 9 things on the list. So if you guys want more of underrated, overrated, you let me know. We've got plenty of ammo.
We'll have you back on. I think I really want to do like some kind of roundtable training, you know, like pick a topic and have on, you know, you and Tyler or a few people and just like go deep on some of these things. Some of these same things, but yeah, that's the one thing I miss about the Camp 4 podcast. Yeah, you should probably tell people what other stuff you're up to. I was going to say that earlier. Like, do you want to really quickly mention the Camp 4 certification? You kind of mentioned it in passing, but you should tell people just in case there's anybody who lives under a rock and doesn't know about it, I guess.
Yeah. So my biggest passion project for Camp 4 right now is bringing into climbing what other sports and professions have, especially fitness, which is certification quality. You know, I think there's only the CWA and some like working at heights and route setting things, but when it comes to the fitness side of stuff, And really the coaching side of stuff, it doesn't exist. We are in the age-old high school football where, oh, you won a high school title? You're our head coach. Yeah. And so it's like, oh, you climb V12? Teach a bunch of kids.
Yeah, totally.
And that doesn't sit well with me coming from other sports backgrounds and fitness. And so what the Camp 4 certification provides is it provides coaches with systems and knowledge and the tools and the practical communication in-person human skills to deal with kids and adults and run assessments and coach exercises and look for quality form, how to make someone squat a little better, how do I organize climbing and training. And it's basically the product of all of the exercise science certifications that I've taken now. And just if there was one for climbing and you had to do it, here, it's done for you already. And so there's a bunch of learning. It's a 2-day course. And to pass the course, like, you have to answer questions from me. Like, I say, hey, what is this? Give me 2 bullet points. Show this test. What kind of isometric is that? Demonstrate this exercise for me. Okay, if someone has their elbow hurt, what are you going to do? Demonstrate this exercise for me. If someone's not fit, like, I want them to be not only knowledgeable of what crimp is and what squat is, but like, you're an in-person coach. You need in-person skills to be really good at this. And eventually I want you to understand type 1 versus type 2 collagen. But right now I want you to understand how programs make sense, what not to do more and what to do, and how to communicate and how to think about this. So long story short, that is the Camp 4 certification. And it's been awesome. I've been having a lot of fun. Very fortunate that, Tyler and I have put this thing together, and I get to fly around and hang out with awesome people for a weekend across the world. And it's been well received. With some Google reviews and whatnot, but the messages I get were like, hey, we've been doing your thing for a couple months now. All my kids are double their finger strength. We just had 2 more kids go to regionals. 1 went to worlds. Everyone's healthier. People are getting less hurt. We strength train before we practice, and they climb better. Who would have thought? I'm like, this is the goal. And we've had some people saying, I got a message the other day that this person's graduating from their kinesiology university, and the certification was one of their tipping points that made them want to dive even more into their career and pursue what they want to pursue. Like, that's so cool. We're trying to raise the standard of coaching and care when it comes to our climbing community, from the youth to the adults, but we're also indirectly providing people with career opportunities when it comes to turning their passion into something they can do for the rest of their life. So that's what we're doing. So if you see a Camp 4 certification in you, come hang out. It's fun.
Yeah. And it's probably pretty similar to the classes that Tyler was teaching before you guys started doing this, right? It's a lot of the same stuff. Yeah.
The separating thing is Tyler's is going to be focusing on the weekend athlete that wants to train themselves. Okay. The physiotherapist, doctors, very injury, very sciencey,
not
very
youth coach
technical
driven.
Yeah. I am the youth coach, personal trainer kind of person. And so we are very communication, programming, exercising, how the performance testing can be done practically and then implemented into your program. So they're same, but different. I think we just have a different demographic that we're targeting. But all fundamentally the same principles of exercise in there.
Cool. That was the Tyler one is the one I did Tyler's maybe 3-4 years ago or something like that. And beyond just learning a lot from it, it was really fun. And also there were 13 people there or something, and I still talk to 6 of those people all the time. Yeah.
The community is awesome. I think that's the coolest part about what we do here is, we have a little private group for the people at least from the certification side of things. I keep up with all these coaches from all over the country and all over the world and helping them do this. And you just build the network that I think is so essential to becoming a better version of yourself, but also to elevate the climbing community, because now you have the physiotherapist that you need to call. You have someone that's dealing with para climbers versus regular climbers, and you have a question that needs to get answered, and there's just this awesome group of people that you can lean on for help.
Build the community you want. That's a good note to end it on.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, Collin?
They can find me in Reading, Pennsylvania, if you want to come boulder on some awesome diabase. Hashtag Pennsylvania bouldering. Watch the video on YouTube. It's awesome, people. But also camp4humanperformance.com, right next to Jesse's face. I'm the next face over. I got the beard. And I like to work with people who need a little bit more guidance and structure to their training, and they want to implement the fitness side of things and plan their on-wall stuff a little bit here and there. I then send them over to Jesse if they want to be more philosophical and better with the footwork. But if you want big biceps, so yeah,
yeah, you're Lifts McGee on Instagram. Right?
Yeah, Lifts McGee on.
It should probably be Climbs McGee at this point.
Eventually, we're gonna have a switch. It was something before, and then I switched it to Lifts McGee when I got into the fitness side of Instagram. But Collin, what's his name, took Collin Climb, so can't do that anymore. So
Collin Duffy. Yeah,
yeah, Duffy. Oh yeah. So
cool. Thanks, man. This was fun.
Dude, thank you so much. Always a great time. Thanks for having me on, and we'll do it again.
Cool. Thanks for listening, everybody. Peace.